Good morning, everybody. I'm Erick Burres with the State Water Resource Control Board. I am the leader of the Clean Water team, helping our citizen monitoring groups throughout the state. And most importantly for this meeting is I'm one of the co-facilitators for the Safe to Swim network. So we have a short meeting today. I hope we can make a great use of your limited time. I'm going to be giving an opening and then going over the agenda. Also want to invite Amanda and Alicia to join, and they have some announcements they can make for their work groups. And then we have from 10:20 to 10:30 a report from the very first California Bacteria Summit that will be presented by Amanda Blackwell. After that, 10:30 to 10:40, we'll have a report from the second national workshop on the marine environmental DNA. That was held at SWRCB. Susie Theroux is going to be giving that. And then following at 11:40 to 11:30, we'll have an introduction to surface water quality assessment and the California Integrated Report. This is rescheduled from earlier this year. We're really excited to have Lori and her team join us and talk about something that a lot of people had questions about, and we're wondering, how does this integrated report work? What are these water quality assessments? What's the 303D, 305B reports? And then following that up, we're just going to wrap things up and conclude our meeting, hopefully around 11:30, maybe before that. So thank you again for joining us. This is our last meeting for 2022. We've had a busy year as COVID kind of decreased. Beaches were open, people were out recreating, and lots of people were out monitoring. And we've had a couple meetings and several meetings from our different beach water quality work groups. First, I'd like to invite Amanda. Amanda, would you like to give a presentation, an update on what your work group is doing and the meeting schedule you have had and any plans for the future?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's Amanda Blackwell. I work in the Ocean Standards Unit at the State Water Board, and I oversee the beach program. And so we have the Coastal Beach Water Quality Work Group meetings, which we hold twice a year, and we just had our second one, annual one, on November 30th. And the meetings are targeted, towards agencies that are part of the beach program. So they go out and monitor the waters for bacteria. And so, yeah, we had a really great meeting on November 30th. We had a few great presentations. The first was from Rebecca Fitzgerald at the State Water Board, who talked about the Bacteria Summit. And I'll talk about that a little bit more today. Then we had John Pang from Orange County, and him and a couple of his colleagues talked about bacteria and pathogen source investigation in Newport Bay and what they're doing there to investigate sources. And then lastly, Romina Chess spoke from San Diego County, and she talked about implementation of DD-PCR in San Diego County and how that's been going for them, and challenges and successes and things like that. So yeah, that's the work group meeting. Yeah, Eric, I don't know if you wanted me to talk about any more like program updates, but
program updates are fine. And do you have a date for your next work group meeting?
Oh yeah, thank you. So the next work group meeting will be held around May. We don't have a date scheduled yet, but we will announce it on the website, as well as send out LIRIS announcements. And then And then kind of other things going on in our program for the beach program. We finalized our quality assurance program plan, which is a requirement for the US EPA. So that's been submitted to the EPA for review and approval. And it documents our current beach program processes and standards. And it's a requirement to have an approved program plan to continue to receive federal funding. And then the other thing that we're thinking about is the Justice 40 initiative, which is a federal initiative that diverts 40% of certain federal investments to disadvantaged communities. So we're trying to, they've provided us with a list of disadvantaged communities in California, and specifically for the beach program, those beaches that are in disadvantaged communities, so that we can review those and make sure that we're monitoring those beaches, as well as providing notification for them when we exceed bacteria levels. So, yep, that's pretty much everything we have going on.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Alicia, if you're with us, I don't think I saw her. Alicia, if you're here, do you have an update for the Inland Waters Work Group?
She's not on right now.
I don't see her on. Yeah, she didn't make it, so didn't get an email from her, so she may have had issues at home or commute or, okay, so we can move on. Luke, I see you online. Do you have any updates, information you want to bring us from Bill the Bay, or anything else that's been going on?
Huge updates. We are working with Amanda to work on the second bacteria summit, which, you know, will cover a lot of freshwater topics, including AB 1066. So I would just say stay tuned for that. And if any folks want to get involved with that process, you know, they're able to reach out to Amanda or Rebecca Gerald.
We have a question that popped up in the chat for you, Amanda. Could you please provide some more information about the program allocating 40% of resources? Is this something that the Division of Water Quality is leading, or is it a partnership with another entity?
Yeah, so this is a federal government initiative. I can pop a link in the chat in a moment, but basically, we receive some federal funding, the beach program does. So we're basically, you know, gonna be required to make sure we're monitoring those beaches that are in disadvantaged communities. And I believe this will be applicable to, you know, various environmental programs if they are receiving federal funding.
So the outreach committee has been really busy again this year. We've been continuing to use the social media accounts of the Monitoring Council, you know, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the known suspects. So we were able to put together a group of images using some from last year and a couple of new ones. So we were able to try to drive traffic towards the water quality portal that we maintain with help from the water boards, working together on that. So it's the first part of the year we do outreach for the National Public Health Week and also for Safe Swimming Week. For Memorial Day, We all have images for those. We were able to drive traffic on International Surfing Day, California Surfing Day, World Oceans Day, Labor Day, Independence Day, and then through July, which is Lakes Appreciation Month, we sent out messages for the month, and then once each week for our working group and the harmful algal blooms working group. We were also able to put out some images and try to drive traffic not to just the water quality portal, but also to our educational resources for Small California Day and California Surfing Day. For those, we also like to make sure that we're driving traffic to inland waters. So it's not just always about the ocean. We also try to make sure all of our beaches are being supported. This fall, we again did outreach for World Toilet Day, and new this year, we were able to have the graphics unit come up with some beautiful images for us, and we chose 3 different events to highlight, all about preventing pet waste from getting into our waters and affecting the water quality. So that would be the International Pooper Scoop Week, International Dog Day, and National Dog Day. So this 2023 will be highlighting these events as well as these new events regarding pets, and hopefully we can add some new items as well. Over the summer, we were able to host an intern. We did outreach, and we're looking at getting several interns. We were able to get one excellent person to help us out during the summer. We have 2 different areas of concentration for our interns. Inland beach water quality, where we need some folks to help us conduct research and surveys on freshwater recreation sites, helping us to produce an inventory of these recreation sites statewide. And if we have to do it by chopping up the state into sections, that's fine. It's one of our goals is to get this inventory completed. Fortunately, we didn't have an intern for that. We did have an intern help us with our Safe to Swim network and educational outreach. The goal for this program is to create Safe to Swim beach water quality outreach tools, fact sheets, SOPs, and things like that. This past summer, Daniel Suggs was our student intern. He came to us from California State University Northridge and worked on producing 2 drafts for fact sheets, information papers on sanitary surveys and fecal indicator bacteria. These aren't ready to share yet. We're still waiting on some graphics from the from State Water Board. We really want to show the pathway routes for fecal bacteria, indicator bacteria, and how they can get into the stream. Where's the source of pollutants? We have fecal oil route diagrams online and in textbooks, but we don't have anything specifically targeting water recreation. So we're hoping that we'll get those graphics by the end of the year and can put all the information that Daniel created, get it through our team to make sure everybody's happy with it, and we'll upload it to our knowledge drops. That's information that we have for teachers and other folks that want to communicate the sciences that we do and the policies that we're supporting. We're also putting together a series of workshops this next year with EPA. It's the Clean Water team and the outreach group working to host the utilization of EPA's app on conducting sanitary surveys, both marine and freshwater. And then the workshop will actually be in classroom and then out in the field, walking people through the process of putting together a sanitary survey and then how do you conduct that in the field. We did several of these a few years ago, and we're happy to work with EPA again. We sent out emails. We have some information that will be posted online so that people can host the workshops. We're looking at community organizations, watershed groups, tribes that want to have this workshop at their facility and also asking them to bring in folks from around the watershed so that we can have lots of people participating and utilizing this tool to help steward their swimming holes and their watersheds. If we have any questions on that or anything that the outreach committee has done, I'd be glad to take those at this time. No questions, you could send them in the chat. If you have follow-up questions, please just send me an email. I'd like at this time to invite Amanda Blackwell to provide us a report from the very first and very exciting California Bacteria Summit that was held.
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I have a few slides for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of give a general overview of the summit. So the first California Bacteria Summit was held from September 14th through the 16th, and it was in person. The purpose of the summit was to understand what it means to have waters that are safe to swim and shellfish that are safe to eat from the risk of fecal indicator bacteria. And we looked at the latest science and learnings and information. We also wanted to identify actions needed to achieve those outcomes. And then there's a link here. I will pop that in the chat as well, but we do have resources from the summit, videos, and as well as all the presentations. So yeah, it was 3 days of in-person presentations as well as breakout groups where groups got to discuss their own perspectives with each other and share information. Okay, so the reason we hosted the summit was to kind of recognize that we have this shared goal of having waters that are safe to swim and shellfish that are safe to eat. We all like to, enjoy recreating in the waters, and so we really kept bringing it back to this shared goal and wanted to get different perspectives on how to achieve those goals. So this was a place where we could have an open dialogue and deliberate, possible actions and solutions. This map gives a great scope of the impaired water bodies throughout California. So it's, coastal waters as well as inland waters that are impaired for recreational uses as well as shellfish harvesting uses. And then we have some takeaways and principles. So this is kind of the information we gathered coming towards the end of the summit. So coming towards the end. And throughout our discussion. So we recognize that the goal, remained the same. Everyone shared this goal of waters that are safe to swim and shellfish that are safe to eat. There was a lot of talk about risk-based perspective and focusing on the riskiest sources. Also, discussion of the source type and why that matters and how to focus on different source types. We talked about opportunities for standards and, pathways to meeting the standards. And then we talked about implementation and, how to achieve our goals and develop tools and things to achieve them. And some other takeaways were we need to, continue collective action and partnering. We also discussed messaging to the public and having more providing more information to the public about what their risk is. And yeah, and then continuing monitoring data and tools. So that led us to our actionable near-term items. So we want to continue the discussion around bacteria and continue these conversations with different community members and get different perspectives. We also plan on doing a report out of the highlights and takeaways from the summit, and we want to reconvene for a one-day discussion of outcomes and more next steps. So that kind of leads me to where we are now. I'm gonna stop sharing this actually. Okay. So kind of as Luke was mentioning, we are planning a second bacteria summit. And, you know, coming out of the first one, we realized we want to get more perspectives from NGOs as well as from tribal representatives and see, you know, what their challenges and needs are. And then, you know, solicit input from any other interested party. We had some people from public labs reach out. So yeah, we're in the beginning planning phases. So if anybody is interested in providing input or discussing this more, you can reach out to me. Currently, we're looking at summer of 2023. So that's, you know, tentative, and we're just kind of really trying to get a lot out of the discussions that we're having in our planning meetings and really hear everybody's perspectives and take our time to really develop out this next summit. So yeah, thank you. That's all the information I have. And if anybody wants to discuss it further, I'll put my email in the chat, and I'd love to talk. So thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. For those of you that weren't able to attend the summit, they do have recordings available online. We have a link to that in the agenda, but you can also find it through the program's website at the water boards. Next up, we have Susie Theroux. She's going to provide us with a report from the second National Workshop on Marine Environmental DNA, which was held here in Southern California. Thank you so much, Susie, for joining us this morning.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if you can see that okay.
Fantastic.
Look good? Okay, great. Awesome. So I am going to provide a little bit of an overview. It was really nice to hear about the bacterial summit because I didn't get to attend because a couple days before we had hosted the second national workshop on marine eDNA. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of that workshop and then also talk about a seminar series that we have coming up this year. So I thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of background on what motivated us to host the second national workshop on marine eDNA. And like many of you are probably aware, there's a lot of interest in adopting a number of different DNA or eDNA methods for biomonitoring and bioassessment. A lot of that motivation comes because these eDNA methods have the potential to be really scalable, so we can often be collecting environmental DNA samples and looking at multiple different species all at one time. They have the potential to be more cost effective, and because we're able to look at multiple species, it helps us just stretch our dollar a little bit further, collect more samples and analyze more data with the same budgets. We can get really sensitive detection of a number of target species, like you probably heard about the digital PCR methods for beach water quality monitoring. These technologies are getting more and more sensitive, more and more accurate. We have the ability to discriminate some of these cryptic taxa, or if they have ambiguous morphology. Some of our harmful algal bloom species can sometimes be really difficult to discriminate with microscopy. So now we are interested in looking towards DNA-based methods to kind of layer in an additional way of better understanding our biological communities. So this all sounds great, and we have the Molecular Methods Work Group now that's part of the Water Quality Monitoring Council, and a lot of interested folks using these eDNA methods, but how do we actually go about adopting them for routine monitoring? Right now, that's kind of been the biggest question that we want to address, how we can operationalize these methods and get them into the hands of a broad user community. So with that in mind, we had this second national workshop on marine eDNA. The first one was hosted, I believe, in 2018. It was back on the East Coast. And so they wanted to host this one on the West Coast. The other thing that we wanted to do with this workshop in particular was bring together a really diverse group of folks. So not only eDNA users or researchers, but also those in the management community and a number of different local, state, and federal agency representatives all coming together talking about how we can begin adopting these eDNA methods and standardizing them or harmonizing different approaches to accelerate the adoption of these methods for routine monitoring and assessment. We were interested in identifying some of the key hurdles, whether they are technical, regulatory, or standardization based, and then coming up with an action plan to basically try and overcome some of these hurdles so that we can smooth the path for eDNA method adoption. We had two key public days that were part of the workshop. So the first one we called the training day, and I think some of you on the line may have attended. That day was really geared towards orienting managers and those who are new to eDNA methods on what eDNA is all about, what are some of the big applications, and then actually having some hands-on demonstrations for what it looks like to be collecting eDNA samples out in the field and analyzing them in the lab, and then even looking at the data online and with different visualization tools. We also just wanted to increase awareness and familiarity with the various terminology and vocabulary when you're talking about these eDNA methods. And then the second day was what we called our plenary day, and this is when we were really highlighting hearing from a number of different eDNA experts how eDNA tools are being used across various biomonitoring, bioassessment applications, and then having some open roundtable discussions about what some of those big hurdles or impediments are to eDNA method adoption. So I just wanted to highlight also all the recordings and the PowerPoints from this meeting are available on our website, so feel free to check that out. As I said, we had the goal of trying to have a really diverse community come together. So this pie chart just gives you a sense. We had less than 50% of the attendees were in what we would consider to be like academia. So we really did have a broad reach and folks from a number of different backgrounds all coming together. That included nonprofits, people in commercial industries that are working on getting like Jonah Ventures, who we work with through the surface water ambient monitoring programs, eDNA efforts CMAP. They've been partnering with them. And then, of course, a number of different folks in federal and then state and local agencies talking about what some of these different applications are for eDNA methods and then current roadblocks to implementation. The big takeaways that we discussed throughout the course of the meeting and in some of the interactive breakout discussions that followed was that there were three key roadblocks right now that we identified as being the current impediments to eDNA method adoption. So that would be method standardization. So whether that's identifying what some of the best practices are or how to harmonize different approaches, if folks are collecting eDNA in slightly different ways, how we can harmonize all that data together, make sure we understand all the biases and limitations of different methods, and then working together to fill in DNA reference library gaps. That's always a big one that comes up. Also communication, so enhancing the way that we talk about eDNA. Definitely as eDNA researchers, we can get really granular and hyper-focus on all the things we don't know yet instead of spending our time talking about the things that we do know. So how can we improve our communication between eDNA researchers and those in the management community to kind of, again, smooth this path towards eDNA method adoption? Also talking about the importance of co-designing eDNA research studies with researchers and managers and stakeholders. That's something that we do in California, I think, really well. And it was really nice to kind of share that with folks from all across the U.S. Who don't necessarily have those same opportunities that we do in California to be partnering among all these different groups. And then lastly, there was a call for a national strategy on eDNA. And so this would come potentially from the federal agency level. I should mention that in the plenary day, we had introductory remarks from a woman, Dr. Jane Lubchenko, who's currently the Deputy Director of the White House Office of Science Technology Policy. She talked about the different White House initiative that can be incorporating eDNA methods. And then she asked for a report out after this meeting. And so we have had some follow-up discussions with her about this idea of a national strategy and having a number of the federal agencies working together again with state and local agencies to come together and identify what some of these key priorities are for advancing eDNA methods and how we can be bringing this eDNA community together. And building capacity. So, it's great to know what some of these eDNA tools, but how can we be training folks for collecting them and making sure that there are enough labs and personnel that are capable of performing these analyses. And then I should just say we have a journal special issue from this environmental DNA journal. We'll have a special issue that's devoted to the outcomes of this workshop. So that should be coming online sometime in the next year. Okay, as I mentioned, one thing that I really like to highlight is that in California, I think we do a really good job of bringing together a number of different researchers and stakeholders that are interested in eDNA. So this is that co-design element that I was talking about. And I think one of the ways that we do that is through the California Molecular Methods Work Group. So this is a work group, as I mentioned, within the Water Quality Monitoring Council. We meet monthly, and this is open to anyone who wants to join. So if you're interested, feel free to shoot me an email, and we'd love to have you join in our meetings where we talk a lot about sometimes the nitty-gritty of eDNA methods, but then also sometimes big picture, how we can be enhancing coordination and collaboration among different agencies and researchers. And with that in mind, the last thing I wanted to say was thanks to Erick. We're going to be organizing a series of virtual webinars this coming year. Somewhere in the window between January to June. They'll be approximately monthly, and we'll be hitting topics like eDNA 101, so the broad overview of eDNA methods and applications, eDNA for bioassessment, eDNA for harmful algae, invasive and endangered species surveillance, human health, so this would touch on beach water quality monitoring, and then how you go about with data analysis and bioinformatics / data visualization for eDNA methods. So these will be really great. And when we've gotten them scheduled, we'll be blasting all of the listservs, so you can stay tuned for those details. But I look forward to seeing many of you there. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Susie. We have Lori Weber from the State Water Resource Control Board giving us an excellent introduction to the surface water quality assessment and the California Integrated Report. Lori, thank you for joining
Eric.
us.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Eric, and I hope I can live up to the excellent adjective that you just said. So you guys can all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for, thank this group for inviting me first, and I'm glad that I'm finally able to give this presentation. I know we were scheduled to give the presentation over the summer, and unfortunately was unable to cover that, so I'm glad that I'm finally here. And if you are, I think I know some of you in the group, but a lot of people I don't know. My name is Lori Weber, and I'm a senior environmental scientist at the State Water Board, and I oversee one of the 2 integrated report units at the State Water Board, at the State Board. The Integrated Report Program is located in the Division of Water Quality at the State Board, which is the same division where Amanda who just spoke earlier, hi Amanda, is located in with the Ocean Standards Unit. Also, just to let you know, at the State Board, within the Integrated Report Program, we work very closely with staff at the 9 regional water boards to implement the program. So today I'm just going to give you an overview of the program. I'll talk a little bit about the components of the integrated report, kind of what goes into the report, the process that we undergo to develop the report, and our timeline, our general timeline. The current status of the reports, we're actually working on more than one report at this time. And then I'll end up by kind of demonstrating some of the online resources that are available for more, if you want to drill down and get more information, which include our interactive map, which I'm pretty proud of. And I think you guys would find it useful as well. Okay, so the purpose of the integrated report, what is it? In a nutshell, the purpose of the report, the integrated report, is to assess data and report on the quality of surface waters throughout the state, our beloved state of California. The integrated report is a requirement of the Federal Clean Water Act, and it fulfills the requirements of two sections of the Act. Section 305B requires that the states report on the overall status of water quality in the state. And Section 303D requires states to identify water bodies where water quality standards are threatened or not attained. So if you have likely heard of the 303D list or the list of impaired water bodies or the 303D list of impaired water bodies, this is where that list lives in the integrated report. And then finally, one important point is that when water bodies are listed as impaired on the 303D list, they're prioritized for cleanup or other restoration actions, such as total maximum daily loads or TMDLs, or other actions that restore the water body to the point where water quality standards are being attained. Okay. So this slide introduces some of the key terms related to the integrated report and also illustrates how the report is organized from general to more specific level of detail. So there are three important levels of detail: the water body level, the decision level, and the line of evidence level, or LOE. So you'll hear me throughout the presentation, I'll talk about water bodies, decisions, and lines of evidence. So starting with the water body, which is the most general level of detail. As a water body, as you would expect, is a portion of a waterway, such as a lake or a stream segment or a coastal beach. And it's a portion that has been mapped for integrated report purposes. Each integrated report water body is mapped as a GIS feature, and it's assigned a name and a unique ID in our database. And it's helpful to remember that the integrated report condition categories and the water body fact sheets are reported at the water body level. And I'll show you some examples of that later on in my presentation. The next level of detail is the decision. Decisions are written at the pollutant level, and there may be more than one decision in a water body. So it's helpful to remember here that a 303D listing, or the 303D listings, are reported at the decision level. So we assess quite a bit of data, and in some cases, if we determine that there's an impairment, we'll make a 303D listing, and that's at the decision level. It's decision pollutant, or water body and pollutant. And finally, lines of evidence. The LOE is even more specific. The line of evidence, or LOE, these are sort of the building blocks of the decision. The level of detail tracked in the lines of evidence includes the beneficial uses, the objective or numeric threshold used to assess the use, matrices such as water, sediment, and tissue, the monitoring project that collects the data, those sorts of things. So each decision, each water body pollutant decision may contain from one or in some cases up to hundreds of lines of evidence. And this slide just contains the same information as the previous slide, but the graphic has been reworked to illustrate how the different components fit together. So the water body, again, the large blue box is the more general level of detail. Within each water body, there'll be one or more decision, which is represented by these orange boxes. And then with each decision, there will be one or more line of evidence, which is represented by these smaller green boxes. Again, I'll point out here on the right-hand side that the integrated report condition categories and the water body fact sheets are reported at the water body level. The 303D listings are tracked at the decision level. And then there may be one or more line of evidence, depending in each decision. Again, here the water body may have more than one decision, depending on the type of data collected from it, and each pollutant gets its own decision. So for example, if mercury and indicator bacteria data are collected in the same water body, we'll actually write 2 decisions for that water body, one for mercury and one for indicator bacteria. If the data show impairment, the water body may end up being listed for both pollutants, so that would be 2 listings within that water body. So on to this, condition categories. Here is a list of the condition categories that we use to write the 305B portion of the integrated report. The 305B portion is the portion that communicates the overall condition of surface waters within the state. It's important to note here that the condition categories are determined for each water body after all of the decisions have been completed for that water body. So as we saw in the previous 2 slides, each water body may have multiple decisions. So it depends on how those are rolled up. That's how the water body is placed into a category. So starting with category 1, so the categories are numbered 1 through 5. Category 1 water bodies are where we can determine that at least one beneficial use is being supported. So we have enough data to say that, you know, the use is being supported, and there is no evidence to indicate that any other uses are impaired. Category 2 is for water bodies where there is insufficient information and we cannot determine if the use is supported or not. Category 3 is for water bodies where we have insufficient information, but there is evidence that beneficial uses may be threatened. In that case, we tend to call the category 3 the watch list. If we're concerned about a water body, but we don't have enough data to list it as impaired for a specific pollutant, we may put it in the watch list in category 3. Category 4 gets pretty complicated, but basically overall it's for water bodies where the impairment or if there are multiple impairments that have been identified, but they're being addressed by an action such as an EPA approved TMDL, which would be 4A, or an action other than a TMDL, which would be 4B, or 4C, where the impairment is caused by a pollution and not a pollutant. So pollution can be things like hydromodification. Oops. And then for category 5, these are water bodies where there's at least one impairment that we need to develop a TMDL for. Okay, next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the listing policy. This is available on our website. It's the state policy with the guidelines that we follow to develop the 303D list. It was adopted in 2004, amended in 2015, and its purpose is to establish a standard approach for assessing the quality of our waters and determining whether they should be included on the 303D list. So it's pretty focused on the 303D list. But the policy covers the entire assessment process, the factors that we use to list or delist a water body on the 303D list, and it covers also some of the administrative process that we undergo to develop the list, which includes the public process. So I just wanted to give you some high-level overview, kind of summary statistics about the current integrated report. The current report, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail, the current report is the 2020-2022 integrated report. And I'll talk about this later, but it's good to know that the integrated report is submitted to EPA every 2 years on even-numbered years. It's due April 1st of every even-numbered year. So we call each report a cycle. So the current report is the 2020-2022 cycle. It was approved by EPA on May 11th of this year. We submitted it on April 1st. I should note that. We submitted it on April 1st. They approved it on May 11th. Good to know that each integrated report is cumulative. That is, as we assess new data, we make new decisions or update previous decisions from the prior integrated report. So these statistics here represent the cumulative efforts of current and prior integrated report cycles. And just very high level, over the years, we've mapped and assessed data from 3,246 water bodies. We have assessed 686 different analytes or pollutants, and we've evaluated 3,707 different data sets or sources of information. And then as far as actual components of the report, we have 186,029 lines of evidence, 53,185 decisions, and 5,173 listings. So of all of the data that we've assessed over the years, we currently have 5,173 individual 303D listings. And then finally, I just want to highlight here that the listing is just the first step of a long process. Once a water body pollutant combination is placed on the 303D list, it's put into the pipeline for implementation actions to fix the impairment. These actions include permits, grant projects, and other management measures. Fixing the impairment would take a long time and require follow-up monitoring and adaptive management. So it's just the start of a long process, which could include a TMDL, or total maximum daily load. But the long-term goal is to fix the impairment and delist the water body pollutant combination from the list. And so this slide shows how those 5,173 303D listings are distributed among the major pollutant categories. The vertical axis here is divided into the pollutant categories, and the horizontal axis is represents the number of listings within those categories, and you can see these bars kind of show how many. Each bar is subdivided into different colors, and those colors represent the 9 regional water boards. It's a little, and then the total number of listings is shown by this number at the end of each bar. So for example, you'll see here that there are 1,337 303D listings for pesticides and other toxic organics. There are 929 303D listings for metals or other toxic inorganics, and so on. And actually, since this is the Safe to Swim network, you'll be interested to see that there are 670 impairments or 303D listings for indicator bacteria. Actually, Amanda showed a map of where those listings were located, which water bodies they're located in throughout the state, when she presented on the Bacteria Summit. Another thing you can do with this chart is to sort of eyeball the number of amount of listings in each regional water board. So, for example, Regional Board 3, which is the Central Coast region, is the yellow portion of each bar, and you can kind of scroll through and kind of see the relative contribution of 303D listings in Region 3, and eyeball the same way eyeball different the rest of the regional water boards. This is a very high-level graphic, and if you want to drill down into a finer level of detail, for example, you want to actually know how many indicator bacteria listings there are in Region 3, I would refer you to the Excel version of the 303D list, which is posted on our website. And I'll demonstrate how to find that file at the end of my presentation today. All right, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the timeline, kind of how we prepare the timeline that we follow, or how long it takes us to prepare the integrated reports. So this graphic shows it's a general overview of the steps and how long it takes for us to develop these reports. As you can see here, it takes longer than 2 years to develop a report. It's closer to 4 years from start to finish. So in order for us to submit the reports on time to the EPA by April 1st, of every even-numbered year, we stagger those reports and we kind of develop them concurrently. So just very high level, the major steps for integrated report development are data solicitation, which is about 6 months. Data review and mapping takes about 7 months. Data analysis, this is the assessments when we write the LOEs and the decisions, about 15 months. Then we switch over to the public process, where we release a draft staff report, have a hearing with the state board and an adoption meeting with the state board. That takes about 15 months. And then we submit to EPA, and they have about 30 days. It seems to take them a little bit longer, but about 2 months for us to compile everything, submit to the EPA, and for them to review it. Okay, so I'm going to go through each one of these steps and give you just a very general overview of what the process is like. First step is data solicitation. Again, the data solicitation period typically lasts 6 months, and it starts with the public notice of data solicitation. So you may be familiar with these notices. They come out at the start of the data solicitation. The notice explains how to submit data for assessment, what the minimum data requirements are. Again, for the most part, data should be submitted to the California Environmental Data Exchange Center Network, to the California Environmental Data Exchange Network, or CEDN database. Although CEDN doesn't accept all kinds of data, for example, continuous monitoring data. So data that's not compatible with CEDN can be submitted through an online portal called the Integrated Report Upload Portal. There's a link here in the presentation, and the data solicitation notice also has a link to the portal with instructions for how to submit data. In addition, most data sets will need a Quality Assurance Project Plan, or QAP, and the QAPs can be submitted to us through the IR Upload Portal. And each notice includes a data cutoff date by which all data must be submitted to be considered for a particular integrated report cycle. Okay, so after the data cutoff date, staff at the Water Board start the data review and mapping process. This includes querying the data from CEDN, assembling the data for review. We evaluate data quality to identify data that can be assessed for the integrated report. We evaluate data quality actually in 2 ways. We have a tool called the Data Quality Estimator tool. It's a screening tool. We actually review each data point and estimates the data quality based on the QC information and other metadata that's provided with the data that's associated with the results. The tool was developed actually with the assistance of our partners over in the at the State Water Board at the Office of Information Management and Analysis, where Nick is. Nick also works there. So thank you to the team over there in OEMA, Office of Information Management Analysis, for developing this tool for us. On the other side, the second thing we do to review data quality is that we review quality assurance project plans. We cannot use, our listing policy doesn't allow us to make a listing or delisting decision solely relying on data that is not supported by QAPP. So we review QAPPs and make sure that the data are supported by an adequate QAPP. Also during this step, we're mapping the stations where data has been collected and mapping our and associating, or we're mapping the water bodies, water body segments that are being assessed for the integrated reports. We can do this by either associating new stations with data to existing integrated report water bodies. So if we get data collected at a station that has already been mapped, we'll just associate the station with that data, with that water body, and assess the data that way. In some cases, we receive data collected in locations that have not been mapped yet for the integrated report. So we map new water bodies and associate those stations that way, and then kind of incorporate it into our system that way. Let's see, next slide. Okay, once we've mapped and reviewed data quality, and we have our kind of data set of accessible data. We start writing the lines of evidence. And as I mentioned, the line of evidence is the first building block of the assessment. Essentially, each line of evidence compares data to a numeric threshold. Kind of the bread and butter of it is that it's comparing data to a numeric threshold, such as a water quality objective, and that threshold is selected or is created to assess the attainment of a beneficial use. So the question that we're asking with the line of evidence is there evidence here that the beneficial use is supported? That's sort of the essential question. But as this graphic demonstrates, most LOEs are, there's quite a few different components within the LOE. So it's written for each, we'll write an LOE for each combination of water body, beneficial use, monitoring project and monitoring station, analyte, which is the pollutant that we're the data that we're assessing, matrix and fraction. So is it water, sediment, or tissue data? Is it total or dissolved? And then, of course, the numeric threshold that we're using to compare the data to. And the result is the number of samples and the number of exceedances. So for each combination, the line of evidence summarizes the total number of samples and the total number of samples that exceed that numeric threshold, which we call the exceedances. Once the lines of evidence are written and uploaded into our assessment database, the next step is to combine them for each water body by pollutant and make a water body pollutant decision. So LOEs are written with data received during the data solicitation period. So new data are combined with LOEs from prior cycles for that same data and that same water body if they exist and assessed as a whole. So the question we're asking here is based on the evidence from all of the lines of evidence for that pollutant in this water body, is the water body impaired for that pollutant? And the way we make that impairment decision is to run a statistical test, the binomial test. And the binomial test and its use is described in our listing policy. In a nutshell, we count the number of exceedances and the number of samples. And if the number of exceedances is equal to or greater than the minimum number in the binomial tables in our listing policy for that sample size, we make the decision to list the water body as impaired for that pollutant. If the number of exceedances is less than the minimum number in the binomial tables in our listing policy, we do not list the water body for that pollutant. That's the sort of the simple approach. There are other nuances, but that's kind of the basic approach. And again, as I mentioned before, each water body pollutant decision is considered an individual 303D listing decision. So that's why you'll hear that a water body is impaired for pollutant A, for example, bacteria, and for pollutant B, for example, mercury. And then as a reminder, this graphic kind of shows you all of the individual pollutant decisions are combined into a water body fact sheet. And this graphic is just a very simple representation of a water body fact sheet. So once we're done with the decisions, we've completed our assessments, we've written our decisions in CalWACA, we start the public process. And the public process consists of compiling the 303D list, writing a staff report, releasing the staff report and the draft list to the public for review and comment. During the public comment period, which typically lasts about 3 months, we hold a hearing with the State Water Board. This gives the public the opportunity to provide oral comments as well as written comments. Then at the close of the public comment period, we compile all of the comments that we've received, and we respond to those comments. We write a response to comments document, and we revise the list and our staff report as appropriate. And then we release the proposed final version of the staff report along with a response to comments document. and schedule a meeting for the state board to consider adoption of the list. Once state board has adopted or approved the list, we submit the 303D list to the USCPA. We're required to do that by April 1st of every even-numbered year. The process for submitting the list is through a database, the EPA's database called the Assessment Total Maximum Daily Load Tracking and Implementation System, or ATTAINS. And then, so it's due to them through this database process by April 1st. And then they have 30 days to review. They can approve the list as it is. They can change some of the listings. In prior cycles, they've decided to list water bodies that the state board had not approved, but EPA has the discretion to do that. And then once it's approved by EPA, it becomes the final, or kind of the current integrated report for California. Additionally, the information that's submitted through ATTAINS is also available publicly through the EPA website called the How's My Waterway website, which is a pretty useful and interesting, user-friendly way to look at integrated report data and information for the whole country. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a really brief overview of where we are, a status update of where we are currently with the integrated report cycles. So as I mentioned, the 2020-2022 integrated report cycle, this is the current integrated report. I should mention that during each cycle, there are 3 regional boards that are on cycle. We call them on cycle. They assess all of the data collected in their regions. So the second column here kind of indicates which regional boards are on cycle for each cycle. So for 2022, the 3 regional boards that were on cycle were the Central Coast region, or Region 3, the Central Valley region, Region 5, and the San Diego region, Region 9. As I said, let's see, this is the current integrated report. It was approved by EPA in May of this year. The state board approved it on January 19 of this year, and the data solicitation deadline was June 14th of 2019. So we're currently working on 2 integrated reports, the 2024 cycle, which will be submitted to the EPA by April 1st of 2024. The regional boards that are on cycle are the San Francisco Bay region, the Los Angeles region, and Santa Ana region. In addition, Region 5 is kind of starting to take a new approach with the 2024 cycle. They're assessing a portion, about a third of their region every cycle. Region 5 is the Central Valley region. They're current for the 2024 cycle. They are assessing data and information from the Sacramento River watershed portion of their region. Some important milestones for 2024. The data solicitation deadline was October 20th of 2020. And currently where we are, we're almost done actually with all of the decisions, with the data analysis, and we're preparing the staff report for the 2024 cycle. The public comment period is scheduled for February, so we're intending to release the staff report in February of 2023, so coming up in a couple of months. That period will last through April. We'll receive comments during that period. We'll have a state board hearing to receive oral comments. And then we're scheduled to take this, after response to comments and release of the proposed final staff report, we're scheduled to take the integrated report to the state board in about a year, in December of 2023. That'll give us enough time to submit to EPA by April 1st of 2024. We're also working on the 2026 cycle. This one's just getting started. It seems a long way away, but it'll come sooner than we expect. The regional boards that are on cycle are the North Coast region, which is Region 1, the Lahontan region, Region 6, and the Colorado River Basin region, which is Region 7. And the Central Valley region is will be assessing the San Joaquin watershed portion of their region. So the data solicitation deadline just passed. It was October 21st of this year. And we're currently working on data review and mapping. So just getting started on this one. All right, so I've got some resources to share with you all and kind of additional information, but I think I should pause here and see if there are any questions about what I just presented. Okay, well, feel free to chime in and ask questions as I go through this. Let's see, I'm going to switch over to the website. Okay, so there are quite a few different resources and information that you can download, information you can download from the website if you want to learn more about the integrated report or the current cycle, the assessments that we've completed for the integrated report. What I'm showing now is our main page. And this is maintained by the State Water Board, and this is our central location for all things integrated reports. There's a lot of background information here on the left-hand side. You can click on these links and learn more about the integrated report in general. We have links to each one of the regional water boards. They also maintain their own integrated report websites. The listing policy is here, and then there's a link to all of the integrated report cycles. For quick links over here about any particular cycle that we're working on or our current cycles, on the right-hand side, we have a bulleted list showing which reports are in progress with links to more information about those reports. We also have information about data solicitation and the instructions for how to submit data, and then some related links. All right. So I wanted to kind of go over some of the resources that are available about the current integrated report. If you want to learn more about a water body of interest, drill down to the raw data, that sort of thing, click on this link here for the current integrated report. This is our main page for the 2020-22 cycle. We will be, at this point, it's just a laundry list of documents, not as user-friendly as we would like it to be. We're working on a new website. It's kind of organized this way during the public process because of all the different documents that we needed to make available throughout the process, but we're working on a new, kind of reorganizing this a little bit, and we hope to release a more user-friendly website with the updated, when we release the draft staff report for the 2024 cycle. But a couple of, some of the documents here that you'll, if you wanted to learn more about the report, the staff report, this fourth bullet here, contains a lot of information, a lot of background information into much more detail about what I just presented, the different, how the report is structured, the water body categories, more information about the analysis that we conduct for the integrated report. So the staff report is a good place to start for that information. If you want to just look at the 303D list, this Appendix A is an Excel file with just, it has a list of the water body pollutant combinations that are on the impaired water body, that are on the 303D list. And I'll bring it up here. This is what it looks like. So if you click on the link and download the Excel file, here's the Appendix A. It lists, each row is a water body pollutant combination. Includes a lot of information about, these are the water bodies that are listed. If you, explains which regional water board, the water body name, the water body ID, which is kind of our unique identifier. Some information about each of the water bodies, kind of statistics about water body size. Decision ID, this column M, that's pretty useful. You can cross-reference this with the water body fact sheets if you're looking for a particular decision. The pollutant category, the final listing decision. This changes because sometimes it's a list and sometimes it's a do not delist. It's already been listed. We reviewed it again. It's a do not delist. Information about the TMDL expected dates and some comments. There's a lot of information here. We do have a definitions page that kind of walks through each one of the fields and defines what the fields are telling you. All right, so that's Appendix A. If you're mostly interested in the 303D list and the water bodies that are on that list. Appendix B is the water body fact sheets. The water body fact sheets include all of the assessments that have been conducted, all of the data that we have assessed, information about all of the assessments that we've done, not just the assessments that have resulted in an impairment decision. So there's two ways to get at that information. It's quite a bit of information because it's it includes the decisions and the lines of evidence that were used to make the decision. The lines of evidence also have links to the raw data that was compiled to develop the line of evidence. So there's quite a bit of information there. And there's two ways to get at those fact sheets. There's an HTML version, which is an online version, like a website. And then we also have compiled the information, all of that information into an Excel spreadsheet. So first I'll just show you the fact sheets. This is the HTML version of the water body fact sheets. It has, and this document is generated automatically by our database once the decisions have been completed. There's a table of contents where you can click on your regional board of interest, and then the fact sheets are organized by new or revised, or original, which is that they have not been revised this cycle. Again, the fact sheets are organized in a way that it starts with the water body name, and then the water body pollutant decisions are sub-bullets under each water body name. This number in parentheses is the decision ID. It's the unique identifier for that decision ID. So it's pretty good for cross-referencing. If you click on these links, it should take you directly to the decision for that pollutant. Right, here you go. So this is the water body fact sheet for Miners Ravine in Placer County. The decision IDs are separated by these green rows. So each green row indicates the beginning of a new decision, a new water body pollutant decision. Here's the decision ID, which is the unique identifier that I mentioned. And then there's, the information about the decision, the pollutant, the final listing decision, a little write-up explaining the rationale for a decision. And then if you scroll down each one of these areas that's kind of indicated by the gray bars, these are each of our individual lines of evidence. You can see there's quite a few if you keep scrolling down. A little bit about the lines of evidence if you're interested in even more detail, the lines of evidence, you can click through to get to the raw data. The more you can click through to download an Excel file, usually an Excel file of the raw data. There's also information about what the evaluation guideline or the threshold that cites the, kind of references which evaluation guideline, and you can click through to the document that was used to support that evaluation guideline. So it's quite a bit of information, and then if there's more than one decision in the water body, they're indicated by these green lines here, these green rows. So kind of keep scrolling down. You can get at a glance, kind of go through and see how many decisions there are in that water body. So that's the HTML version of the water body fact sheets. There's all the information is there. It's not easily filterable, but the information is there, and it's meant for, kind of organized in a way that for reading through. Another way to get to the same information is by downloading the Excel file. The Excel file contains all of that information, but in Excel. And that's this Appendix B1, Statewide Water Body Fact Sheets Excel version. I brought it up. It's a pretty big file, so it takes a little while to download, but this is what it looks like. You will see there are many, many, many more rows in this file than in the previous one that I showed you. That's because we have a row for each line of evidence. And this includes all of the assessments, not just the assessments that resulted in a 303D listing. It includes a line of evidence and a decision for all of the data that we have assessed in all cycles. And then we have a tab here with the data dictionary that explains kind of what each of the fields mean, and you want to try to figure out what if you're kind of scrolling through and not quite sure what any of these fields are, click on the data dictionary, and there's more information about what kind of a definition of what those fields are. So that's another source of information. This one is a little bit easier to filter. You can download it and pull it into other programs and other apps if you're interested. Okay. So the staff report, the Excel files, and the water body fact sheets are very useful. Most of these appendices they're either specific to the cycle and kind of more information about some of the assessments that we did, or also the category reports is the same information but organized by category, rolled up into the integrated report categories. For those of you who like to work with interactive maps, the last thing I'm going to show you here is our interactive map. It's the very last link in that section. Again, we're planning to reorganize our website so that the map is front and center, but at this point it's kind of buried in that list. Take a few minutes to upload. So this is our interactive map. It's an ArcGIS online, or it's a portal map, ISRI portal map. It's your standard kind of interactive map. There's information on the right-hand side about the map. Well, what you're seeing in general, each one of these features is an integrated report water body. Either the ones that are in dark green are the water bodies where there is at least one listing, and then the features that are light green are water bodies where we have assessed data but we haven't listed. We haven't made any listing decisions. see what some other features about the map. If you're interested, you can search for a water body name here. So search for Folsom Lake. Zoom into the water body. If you click on the water body, it brings you, there's a pop-up window with summary information. Again, the water body name, the regional board, size, county, whether or not it's listed. And then if you, and then the pollutant that it's listed for, which is, you can see here that Folsom Lake is listed for mercury. This number here is that decision ID, which is, again, cross-referencing the decision with the Excel spreadsheet, the HTML version of the water body fact sheet. So it's a good way to kind of cross-reference between these different components. If you click on this link here for the fact sheet, it goes to the fact sheet, the HTML version of the fact sheet for that water body. So this is just another way to kind of drill down into the HTML, into the water body fact sheets that are on the website. This is, again, it's the same organization, Folsom Lake, the water body name, and then each decision is indicated by a green bar. Kind of scroll down and get more information there. See anything else about the map? I think this is a pretty handy tool for zooming in and out, and it's a lot. This is the most user-friendly tool that I think we have for learning more about the integrated report. It's kind of fun to scroll around. There's also an attribute table that you can download for a particular, if you're interested in that. Okay. That's pretty much all I have to share about the integrated report resources and kind of what's available on our website. Does anybody have any questions, or I'm happy to answer questions if you have them.
I have a couple basic questions. First of all, thanks, Lori. I appreciate you sharing the presentation, and I love the walkthrough of the resources. So it sounds like the LOEs prompt the decision process. Is that right? Okay. And then so if there isn't an LOE, or if there are no LOEs, then would it automatically go into like that tier 2 category?
If there are no, we wouldn't, I think not in the report. If we don't have data for a particular water body, it's, we haven't mapped, it's just that we haven't mapped that water body yet for the integrated report. I've thought about, one thing that I would like to do would be to kind of map our unassessed water bodies. So basically what you're saying, water bodies where we have no data, we have no lines of evidence, and include that in this map. But that's a project that we haven't been able to initiate yet. So in effect, it's not an unmapped water body segment is not it's not accounted for, or it's not listed in our report as a category 2, but you can think about it that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Lori, do those unassessed water bodies get mentioned in the 305B report at all?
They're not specifically, right? So the 305B report is just is the category reports. that's one of the reasons why I'd like to map them. I'd like to map them and then summarize that, right? So, and explain in our staff report that we have, however many miles and of unassessed waterways, or however many acres of unassessed lakes, et cetera, et cetera. That has not been, we haven't like specifically addressed that yet. Yeah.
Thank you. We have time for additional questions. If anybody is curious about the report, processes. If not, you can always get a hold of Lori Weber after the meeting. Thank you, Lori. That was really great. Very in-depth. Thank you so much for providing this resource. We'll have the recording available for folks that weren't able to attend this meeting.
And I'll send you my slides as well, so that you can post them.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Available. Okay. Thank you.